questions at the at the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. So welcome all to the X-phy SSD cybersecurity with AI SSD webinar. We thank everybody for joining this morning and this afternoon. The agenda today will be an introduction of the technology, the X-phy technology, by Mr. Stanley Tan, Flexon Senior Product Manager. Then we're going to have a brief presentation by Mr. Srinivas from Lenovo ThinkEdge Business Unit. We're very happy to have them. And we will conclude with another session with Stanley. And lastly, with question and answer session in the end. Again, please include all your questions in the chat window, and we will go through them in the end. So why are we doing this? Why are we developing this particular product? Obviously, everybody knows by now cybersecurity is here to stay, as Google study shows, and it's a big problem for all of us. We're expecting the cybercrime cost to best $10 trillion and by 2025. The cybersecurity crimes have increased by 600% since COVID, and we find out that about 95% of all the victims is basically due to human error. So we're trying to demonstrate today is our ability to protect people from cyber crimes without user intervention. Now we're going to go ahead and get started with Stanley. Stanley?
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everyone. Once again, thanks for joining this webinar session. I'm Stanley, Senior Product Manager for Flexon. Introducing our award-winning innovation, X-phy Cyber Secure SSD. This world-first SSD embedded AI security at firmware level that co-function with hardware sensor for real-time protection against cyber threats such as ransomware, malware, data cloning, and even the unknown threats. It detects based on any anomaly change in data access pattern or any sign of compromise. This innovation has won the Cybersecurity Call for Innovation 2019 award by Cybersecurity Agency Singapore. We have also received other awards along the way. We now have 4 patents filed, with 2 being granted within 6 months, as it is deemed as novel as well as important to the industry. Now, let's take a look at where X-phy sits in the cybersecurity defense map. This is the cybersecurity defense map with a subset of solutions at the different OSI layer. Today, all the cybersecurity tools mainly focus on the top 6 layers of the OSI network architecture, protecting the cloud and network, machine, OS, and software layer. But we have seen ransomware breaking through those different layers repeatedly. Also, the last layer, which is the physical layer, is often neglected. Our solution works exactly at the physical layer. We have patents developed that prevents ransomware code from making unauthorized change to the data stored on the disk, thereby defeating any ransomware attack. So rather than having user worry about where the various threat vector originated from, we focus our solution positioning ourselves at the choke point of all ransomware attacks and stop the malware at that location. If all fails, there's X-phy as it stays securely as the last line of defense to ensure that data is always safe and well protected. Moving on, let's look at how traditional solutions fare against X-phy. Traditional solutions typically protect data that is at rest. For X-phy, we provide protection for data that is at rest and data that is in transit. Constant antivirus update has created new vulnerability to the security of traditional solutions, and they lack the ability to detect unknown threats, not to say stop them. Also, they cannot protect against firmware threats. For X-phy, with or without cybersecurity solution, we can function as a standalone unit to give real-time protection to your data. We have AI technology embedded with hardware sensors to protect against both remote and physical threats. This is much like a computer that provides cybersecurity protection within your computer. So let me elaborate more on why putting the AI in the firmware is critical in the cybersecurity scene. The controller and firmware controls every single inbound or outbound data stream traffic. This is where we implement our AI One core technology to detect and respond to any abnormal data access pattern. The built-in AI capabilities act as an intelligent vault with zero trust features, performing as the last line of defense to protect user most valuable and sensitive asset, the data. We don't look for bad actor, but we look for bad behavior. As an experienced SSD solution provider, we identify these cybersecurity issues and stop them at the NAND device. Now, let's take a look at software-based protection versus X-phy. I'm only going to touch on a few points. Currently, available software solutions in the market typically rely on two methods for detection, either through signature-based or behavioral-based. For X-phy, we identify the anomalies in the data access pattern that happens within the SSD internal protocol. Whereas typical software-based solution detects through variable environment, the threat vector can be anywhere and in any form. The advantage of this is that all data access activity is transparent to us. Now ask yourself, how many times have we deferred a window update or an antivirus update because we are in the midst of doing something? What if the attack happened at that moment? So our X-phy do not require human intervention during its usage. We also do not need to update the signature library or rebaseline the threshold, thus providing protection against zero-day exploit. For software-based protection, the threat signature library will have to be updated constantly, and the variable will also have to be redefined for behavioral-based methods. I believe no one will hope to be the first victim to contribute to the library. That's also why our false positive rate is extremely low as we look at the data access pattern and make use of server combination of neural model to identify if this is a legitimate action. Since we have talked so much about X-phy, let's quickly run through some of the features we have in X-phy. Firstly, the X-phy guard protects you against known and unknown threats. X-phy Site Secure protects the drive against physical and site attack. For example, stealing of drive or even heat or cold attack, where hackers attempt to destroy a controller by inserting extreme temperature. We also have rapid purge feature that ensure your data is wiped off at the physical layer after someone has stolen your drive. You'll be seeing the demo for this feature later on. We have other features that provide audit trails, firmware protection, and SSD communication encryption. Our solution places security closest to the data, where it can react in the fastest manner to serve as the last line of defense and providing constant protection as well as additional layer of protection against cyber attacks. Since our launch, Flexon X-phy AI Cyber Secure SSD has attracted high market exposure. It has been featured in multimedia internationally, including CNBC of US and Channel News Asia. Ever since we launched the X-phy, we have received multiple interests from major brands and partners. After the first few engagements, Lenovo recognized and envisioned the X-phy Cyber Secure SSD as the foundation block for secure system, so end user can pursue greater performance with secure device. Jointly, we have announced an exciting partnership by placing X-phy AI Cyber Secure SSD within Lenovo ThinkPad laptops. We now have 3 laptop series, 5 models in collaboration with Lenovo. So I urge you to stay on till the end of the webinar where you will be rewarded with an extremely attractive promo. With that, I will hand you back to the host, Jamie.
Thank you, Stanley. Great presentation. Now I will hand over the meeting for the next portion of the presentation to Srinivas. Srini?
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Stan, for the insightful session. Hello, everyone. My name is Srinivas. I represent the ThinkEdge team from Lenovo OEM Solutions. Thanks for your time today for attending this webinar. So all of you know that Lenovo is an IT infrastructure organization. We sell a lot of tablets, laptops, PCs, workstations, servers, all the way up to hyperconverged infrastructure. We also have a team known as OEM, which is abbreviated as Original Equipment Manufacturer. OEM has two forms of go-to-market strategy. One is for customers who leverage our infrastructure, could be a tablet, could be a rugged server, to compute or to power their IPs, the intellectual properties. For example, it could be a bank running their digital signage solution at a retail branch, leveraging our all-in-one machines or a tablet PC. The second model is we work with niche IP owners like Flexon, and we integrate the IPs into our designs. In this scenario, we have integrated Flexon's X-phy SSDs, which is AI enabled, into our ThinkEdge portfolio and also the laptop portfolio to address operational technology and edge computing use cases. I don't want to go too deep into the product portfolio. We have multiple range of ThinkEdge products addressing the core operational technology functions. It could be for vending machines, ATM kiosks, or a machine controller use case on a shop floor. We also have the short depth servers, which could address your analytics workloads. You could train your AI and ML models on the short depth server in a rugged environment. The next slide I would like to focus is on the edge play of the customer. And this is where the X-phy SSDs play a critical role. So onto your far left-hand side, you would see all the operational technology components. It could be a base station tower or a cell tower, or it could be a truck. We call the compute which goes onto these as far edge, and it requires a fanless chassis. It requires a wide range temperature operations, and it requires the ruggedness of the PC to handle the harsh environments. So as I showed in my previous slide, we have multiple products to address the far edge computing. We classify far edge into two categories. One is the edge-based workloads, could be a simple use case like vending machine where it dispenses few items, or could be a completely AI-related workload. For example, an SE30 gateway lodged onto a smart pole, which captures all the data from the cameras, the smart lighting system. It not only acquires the data, it stores the data and also transmits the data. And once the data is transmitted to a nearby data center or to a private cloud or a public cloud, it also is capable to receive the edge inferencing models. For example, in a manufacturing shop floor, you could train your AI ML models on a rugged server very close to the conveyor belt and move those edge inferencing back to these fanless devices. Currently, we have enabled the X-phy SSD onto one of our ThinkEdge portfolio, which is the SE50, typically called as the industrial compute or embedded compute. I would encourage all of you to type any questions if you have, and we could address it right now or during the end of the session. I would like to highlight on two of the use cases where we have addressed customers leveraging the X-phy SSD integrated into Lenovo's portfolio. Lenovo also has a security framework, which is called as the ThinkShield. So this is not limited to device security, but it's a customizable suite of processes and capabilities that protects the full life cycle of your assets, right from the development stage all the way till disposal. So it comprises of hardware, software, processes, and services. The integration, what you see with Flexon's X-phy SSD is with respect to hardware related. I'll move on to the slide which illustrates the ransomware attack in manufacturing. So the new age manufacturing adopts all the industry 4.0 workloads, maybe high ROI workloads like OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. For example, with a semiconductor or electronic design manufacturer, you have workloads like machine vision systems to detect faulty chips. You have ABI, which is the automated board inspection, which looks into the defects in the board automatically instead of a manual labor. So this encompasses multiple IP devices, right? It could be the cameras, the high resolution or the real depth cameras looking to identify any quality defects. It could be the edge devices, which is catering to the machine controller use case, or could be multiple sensors on the shop floor. So you see there is a wide range of OT and IT equipments in the shop floor. So in this particular scenario, the devices are vulnerable. 68% of the legacy industries, which comprises of banks, manufacturing, or logistics, is vulnerable to insider attacks. The X-phy SSD uses the zero trust security framework to diligently monitor 24/7 any real-time actions, and it locks down the entire system. The SSDs itself have AI-enabled sensors onto them, wherein if they identify any form of physical tampering or side channel attacks, for example, leveraging power surges, sudden fluctuation in temperature, it automatically shuts down the device, and there is auto erase of the data, thereby protecting not just that one particular use case, but also the entire network. So what you could actually achieve in implementing the industry 4.0 workloads, you could actually lose it on ransomware. In manufacturing, ransomware is of two types. One is when hackers log into these new age systems, where you have the IT as the enabler for the operational technology. Your IP could be at risk. In a process manufacturing industry, where you have the formula of recipes, that is your IP. And once you lose your IP, you lose your business. The second form of ransomware attack could be the data of your partners, suppliers, your end customers. So you not only have your IP in attack from ransomware, but you're also exposing your customers and partners' data. So that becomes a third-party ransomware attack. Any questions as of now? Please highlight it in the chat. I'm moving on to my next slide. So banks today have evolved, right? So in the current situation of this pandemic, we see a large footprint of ATM kiosks. Banks have identified new use cases. It's no more the traditional ATM kiosk which dispenses cash. You have video walls, you have digital signage, all inbuilt into that ATM room. So again, there is exposure of heterogeneous environment of IP devices, the access control sensors, the IP cameras, the edge compute, which caters to the core use case of the kiosk, the video walls, the digital signage, all the PCBs, the compute which is powering these IPs. It could be randomly attacked by the hackers, because these are heterogeneous chipsets, right? But if you have an edge compute managing all these devices by integrating the Flexon's X-phy SSDs, you can cover all the gaps in internal communication by keeping the central module and the entire system free of cyber attacks. So we not only are safeguarded on that edge compute, but the whole gamut of network. So these are few examples I've highlighted on OT security and in a traditional customer like banking. But sky is the imagination for this kind of integration. We could see all laptops from Lenovo range having the AI-enabled X-phy SSDs as an integrated component of the device, so that you don't need to do additional benchmarking when it comes to your office or to your warehouse. I end my presentation here, and I would be glad to take questions either now or at the later Q&A session. Thank you once again, everyone.
Thank you, Srinivas. Very interesting presentation. It highlights the fact that cybersecurity criminals don't discriminate, that they can find their way into a corporation in many different ways. And perhaps in places we don't expect security is needed, it's actually very needed, it's essential. I'd like to remind everyone to please type in your questions in the chat window. We can hold the questions to the end. I don't have any questions at this moment, but we'll be happy to address them now if you have any questions for Srinivas. If no questions, then I will go ahead and hand it over to Stan for the next presentation, where he's going to be discussing setting up the X-phy and also showing you a brief demo. Stanley?
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Okay, in this third part of the webinar, I'm going to show you that you don't have to be an expert to use our X-phy. Setting up is extremely simple. We're going to look at 3 easy-to-use tools. Step 1 is to perform data migration from your existing drive to the X-phy SSD if required. Step 2 is to perform the installation and configuration of X-phy Window User Application 2. Lastly, you will be to set up the X-phy Connect, the mobile application tool. Data migration, there's only 3 steps required to get you up to speed. Step 1, select the source drive. Step 2, select the target drive. Step 3, press on the play button to start the data migration. To take ownership of your SSD, set up the SSD in your system. Launch the X-phy tool and follow through the prompt. X-phy is now ready to faithfully protect your data. If you do not have a Google or Microsoft Authenticator, you can download them from the respective App Store. Scan the QR code on the Window User Application tool and follow the prompt. Take note to keep the register key safely, as you might need to use it when you reset your phone or switch to a new phone. But not to worry, a backup copy of the register key will be sent to your registered email. Next, let's take a look at the Window User Application tool. I'm going to use the actual app for better visualization. Firstly, the page that will greet you is the dashboard page. There's a lot of information here. For updating of firmware, which is on a very rare occasion, you just need to click on the button. Next, I'll move on to the event page. In this event page, you'll be able to see the event info, timestamp, username, MAC address, and IP address. These information are stored in the SSD firmware and cannot be tampered or removed, even if data is formatted. Thirdly, I'm going to go through the security features. First, we have the ransomware detection. By activating this feature itself, it will enable your computer to be protected against known and unknown ransomware 24/7. We have also the cloning detection. So any hacker that is trying to do partition cloning from your drive itself will be stopped, protecting your information safe from cloning. This is especially important in the current remote working settings. People are working on the go, and hackers can easily get into the network and clone data of any computer as long as you are in the same network. By activating this function, this can prevent them from doing so. Next up, we have the temperature protection. This feature will allow us to protect against side channel attack, such as heat attack and cold attack. Once it detects any drastic fluctuation of temperature, the drive is going to be locked. Next up, we have the physical protection, which is the monitoring of detachment of SSD from the computer. Once detached, the lock feature will be enabled and all the files will be locked. Email alerts. Email alerts will allow you to receive all the notification email as long as there's any threat on your drive. Lastly, we have this feature called wipe data, which is rapid purge in a more technical term. What it does is that it will clear off all the data on the drive within seconds if physical threat is present. Therefore, before activating this feature, there's a warning that will pop up and you have to agree to it together with the authentication key to confirm this process. Whatever data that is purged is removed from the physical layer and it cannot be retrieved. That's our user application tool. Let's come back to discuss more on the X-phy Connect Bluetooth application. First, you have to download the X-phy Connect Bluetooth application from the respective app store. Then, follow the prompt to create the account. Now that the app is installed, let's look at what can it do. With the X-phy Connect mobile application, you can unlock the drive and check on the event logs that's residing in the SSD itself. Now, we are going to show you two demo videos of our important features. First, we are going to show how we are able to detect unknown ransomware attack that normal antivirus tool is unable to. Secondly, we'll be showing protection against physical attack with rapid purge, so no information will fall into the wrong hands. Currently, there is no solution in the market that offers these features. So why is defending against ransomware important? Every 11 seconds, a new organization becomes the victim of ransomware. With the evolving technique and organization structure to provide ransomware as a service, we can predict that the global ransomware damages will hit 265 billion by 2031. That's over 80,000% increase from 2015. Major companies such as Acer, Colonial Pipeline, Accenture are the victims of the recent ransomware attacks. So let's get started with the first demo. Before we start, do ensure that the ransomware detection feature is enabled in the Windows user application. Now, I'm going to play you a very short demo video to show how X-phy can capture unknown ransomware threat. For this ransomware attack, we are using our modified WannaCry variant to simulate a zero-day attack. First, we are going to inject the ransomware. Now that the ransomware is running, once detected, a notification will be prompted on your laptop showing ransomware detected. An email notification will be sent to your registered email, alerting you of the ransomware attack. The event log will record the ransomware attack as well. To unlock your X-phy SSD, open up your X-phy Connect Bluetooth application, enter the OTP, and pair with your X-phy. Select the lock icon and click on the unlock button to unlock your X-phy. Enter the OTP to confirm the change. A notification of X-phy unlock will be shown. This will confirm your X-phy is unlocked. As you have seen in the video, the first method to unlock the X-phy SSD is through the X-phy Connect mobile application. There is another method to unlock the drive. If the user has another computer, the user can unlock the X-phy SSD as a secondary drive using the X-phy Window User Application tool. It is as simple as keying in the password and the OTP from the authenticator to unlock the drive. Now, let's proceed to the second demo related to physical protection. You might be wondering, why is it important? Over 21% of the attack vector are mainly caused by lost or stolen devices and internal theft. And so, humans are the major defense left. Even Hong Kong government has been breached due to internal theft. Other major corporations like Facebook, Tesla, and Coca-Cola also fall into the victim of insider threats. Therefore, having physical protection is essential. We'll be showcasing how to activate our physical protection function on X-phy. Before we start, we need to ensure that the physical security feature is activated. In this demo, we are also simulating the rapid purge feature as well. So the wipe data toggle has to be switched on. Once any removal of X-phy SSD from computer, you will activate the rapid purge feature that clears off all the data in the physical block layer within seconds. Whatever is purged cannot be retrieved, unlike normal formatting on the computer. Let's start with the demo to simulate physical theft with rapid purge. First, you need to enable the physical and wipe data option. When activating the wipe data feature, a warning message will be prompted. Click yes to proceed, and you will need to key in the OTP to confirm this action. That's because all information will be gone if there's any breach. Next, shut down your laptop physically and remove the X-phy SSD. For simplicity, we'll be reconnecting the SSD back to the laptop and power on. Once turned on, you'll find that all data is completely removed from the physical block. At the end of the day, no one will be able to get any information from the stolen SSD. With that, that concludes the demo as well as part 3 of the webinar. Let me hand you back to the webinar to Jamie. Jamie, please.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you so much for your presentation. I would like to highlight a few of the benefits of X-phy at this point. One of the, we mentioned earlier, one of the key factors in companies and users being hacked is human error. One of the big benefits of X-phy is once it's set up, which is very easy to do, the human interface is no longer needed. It's working in the background. It can protect you. So you don't have to train your staff. You don't have to be highly technical yourself. You can just enable it one time and be protected. And that protection is working for you 24/7 in the background. It's also providing the last line of defense for your cybersecurity ecosystem. The cybersecurity has to be done in layers. So you need layers of protection in different areas at the cloud level, at the server level, at the system level. And now you have the last line of defense at the solid state drive level. I would like to highlight at this point that we have a promotion going on. If you're interested in purchasing any of the X-phy based laptops, you can scan the QR code and use the promo code on the screen to take advantage of the promotion. At this point, we're going to go into the question and answer session. So I have quite a few questions. Thanks for sending those in. I'll read the question and then I'll ask our panelists to comment on those. Some have been answered already, so I'm going to read them quickly. So one question was user manuals related documentation in Japanese. At this point, the documentation, it's all in English, so apologize for that. What encryption standard does X-phy use? Stanley, would you like to comment, please?
Okay, the encryption standard that we are using is using AES standard. So that will actually ensure that the drive is secure throughout the whole usage.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what is the difference between a firewall, Cisco firewall, and X-phy? And we have a comparison table. Stanley?
Okay, Jimmy, do you mind repeating the question again? It's on Cisco firewall and X-phy, right?
Yes, Ryan Gann would like to know what is the difference between a Cisco firewall and X-phy.
Okay, so we are protecting at different layer. For X-phy, we are protecting the endpoint. So, the protection is really at the drive itself where it's closest to the data. For firewall, you normally block the protocol from a network layer. And if today the threat is internal in the office, it could be someone next to you that is injecting or accidentally injecting the ransomware. And so if it's on a firewall level, you will not be able to get protected. I hope that answers your question.
So in essence, there are two layers of protection. If the attack bypasses the firewall one way or another, then the X-phy can still protect the user. So it's not one or the other. Both layers of protection are recommended. What about in encrypted drives versus X-phy? Question from Randy. Stan?
Okay, so for the sorry.
You're muted, Stanley.
Find an answer there.
Okay, you can find the answer in the chat. But okay, so for the encrypted drive, right? Encrypted drive only protect at rest data, whereas for X-phy, we protect even in transit data.
Okay. Next question is regarding to availability of X-phy. Samples available now. As I mentioned earlier, we can you can already purchase the X-phy or the X-phy lab-based laptops of our website. Full production, we're expecting that in Q4 of this year. Question could be for Lenovo or Flexon. Does Lenovo have an X-phy external USB flash drive for existing network computers for backup?
Let me take
Srinivas,
that.
would you like to comment on that, please?
Thank you, Jamie. Good question. As of now, we are pursuing an integrated design, but there is a roadmap to have an external USB-based flash drive, which will be kept posted.
Thank you. Next, is the X-phy application tool available for Linux or Mac OS?
Okay, let me answer this question. It's available both in Windows and Linux, but not on Mac OS.
Is there a timeline for Mac OS implementation, Stanley?
Not yet. Well, we are pretty sure with all these things, right? Apple is going to talk to us very soon.
Okay, thank you. Can you use USB M.2 flash drive options with X-phy inside for backups?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Next one is a very interesting question, actually. I've had this question before. How do you deal with legitimate software that behaves like malicious software, such as sector backups, false scanning agents, such as AV encryption software that basically does similar things as ransomware does?
Okay, so legitimate software, it will be seen as a normal behavior. And for us, our false positive is less than 1%. So things like antivirus, we will be able to distinguish is an antivirus activity or is it a ransomware activity?
Okay. Just to add to Stanley's comments, we the artificial intelligence in the X-phy is looking at many different attributes. So at the user level, it may appear that the operations are very similar, but at the AI level and with all the attributes we're looking at, those operations actually look quite different, quite distinct. So the AI can recognize malicious behavior versus standard usage models. Next question is, the data on the SSD could be valuable or replaceable in corporate-owned PCs, laptops, etc. Is there a feature that allows for backing up and storing the data to a cloud on a regular scheduled interval? Or would this process be handled via an external device? Stanley?
Okay, we are. Jimmy, do you mind repeating the question again?
Sure. The question is, the data on the SSD could be valuable or irreplaceable in corporate-owned PCs and laptops, etc. Is there any feature that allows for backing up and storing the data to the cloud on a regularly scheduled interval, or would this process be handled via an external device?
Okay, so the current device that we have is really focusing on the endpoint protection. So the backing out of the data is handled separately by third-party software, which is not within the product scope.
Okay, those are all the questions I have at this point. Anybody else has any other questions?
Okay, I think there is two more questions. So Srini, I think this question is for you. Does Lenovo OEM provide device management feature on ThinkEdge?
I will take that. Yes, like how we have integrated the X-phy SSD onto our ThinkEdge portfolio. We have integrated device management platform from one of the tier 1 vendor. This device management platform or the IoT platform not just has device management to address the Lenovo portfolio, but to all the devices within the use case, which has a unique ID or a MAC ID. Also, this IoT platform can encompass into additional modules like an orchestration layer, where you could onboard your applications and advance into use cases around analytics and digital twin. So it's a complete stack of IoT platform, could start with device management, can go all the way up to digital twin.
Okay, we have one more question that came in. Is there a setup where an IT administrator can manage more than one drive at a time?
Okay, I think maybe I will take that question. So I think you're looking for the management console, which is in our pipeline. We are actually working on the development for a management console.
Thank you, Stan. Any other questions?
There is one more, Jamie. I would like to take that.
No, go ahead.
Mentions which core verticals is Lenovo OEM targeting through ThinkEdge. Currently, the Lenovo OEM division addresses all the Industry 4.0 framework, mainly comprising of industrial automation, manufacturing, healthcare, transport, logistics, supply chain, oil and gas, power and utilities, and retail verticals.
Okay. Thank you, Srinivas. I don't see any other questions. Do the other panelists see any other questions?
Okay, I think one of the questions is, what is the size available for the X-phy? The size available is 512 gig, 1 terabyte, and 2 terabyte.
Okay, Stanley, any other questions that you can see in the chat window?
Okay, I think that is all the questions. Let me just do a last check to see if there's any questions that we missed out. Okay, I think we just got a new question. Can I just buy the SSD and plug into my current laptop? Yes, as long as your current laptop supports the M.2 protocol. So you can just replace it. As per my earlier presentation, you can actually use our data migration tool to migrate your current data over to the new drive. Okay, for Lenovo IdeaPad, if I'm not wrong, they are using M.2. So yes, you can actually replace it on a Lenovo IdeaPad.
Stanley, do you have any other questions on the chat? No? Oh, I just had a couple of questions come in. Is there a subscription base? In other words, is this product a one-time purchase or based on a subscription? That is a really good question.
It's a very good question. We really hope to go on a subscription model, but no, we are on a one-time purchase model. In the future, for remote management agent, the remote management agent license will be on a subscription basis.
So the next question from Ryan, I think I understand it, but Ryan, you may need to clarify. It's why do I need to switch on physical selection or physical protection is probably what you meant to say in the software. It should be default on. Stanley?
Okay, so physical protection, we always allow the user to have the option to turn it off. So take, for example, today you are trying to clone the drive from on a computer and to be used on another laptop. So once you remove it from the first computer, the physical lock will be triggered. So that's why we always allow the user to have that option to enable and disable it.
Yeah, the physical protection feature comes together with the erase feature. So if you enable it and then you remove the drive or attempt to remove it, it could trigger the protection, which means you would lose your data. So we have to make sure that the user intends to have this level of protection before it's activated. Therefore, it's not recommended that it is done by default. It's something that the user would have to use two-factor authentication to confirm their desire to have this feature on for the safety of their own data. Okay, Stan, do you have any other questions in the chat?
Okay, I think I have a question. Is when you clone a drive, do you have to unencrypt the drive first, then clone? So our drive supports the encryption inside and it doesn't coexist with BitLocker. So cloning activity don't need to unencrypt it. You don't need to unencrypt it before you clone the drive.
I didn't see this question on the chat, but it's a question that I'm often asked. If you want to back up your own X-phy once it's set up, if you wanted to copy it for whatever reason, how do you do that since the drive is protected against data cloning? Stan, would you like to comment on that?
Okay, the easiest way is turn off that feature first before you do your cloning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from?
Yeah, I saw a question. Can the drive be in RAID mode? Yes, it can.
Stanley, can you please repeat the question?
Okay, can the drive be in RAID mode? RAID. Yes, it can.
Okay.
Okay, another question. Wow, this is a wonderful question. Where can I get the X-phy SSD? Okay, you can get it from our store, our online store, www.x-phy.com. So that will actually lead you to our e-store and you can do a purchase there.
You can also scan the QR code on the screen, which will lead you to the X-phy page and you can link from there. Any other questions on your chat, Stan or
If the system is not connected to the internet, how is the firmware updated? Okay, the firmware has to be connected to the internet to get the latest firmware version, but on the existing firmware is sufficient to actually provide the protection against ransomware, cloning detection, and all the physical attacks.
And by the way, the firmware is not expected to be updated constantly, like antivirus has to be updated constantly. Our AI, it's going to be able to detect the threat without continuously being upgraded. Once a time comes where the firmware has to be updated, it would be done directly from the factory through a secure link, so that nothing can bypass the security of the drive itself. As we pointed out earlier, you can certainly buy the drives from our website, but you can also buy the drives from our authorized distributors throughout the world. So thank you for one of our partners for pointing that out. So yeah, you can certainly buy these drives through your local distributor.
Okay, I think that's all for all the questions.
Okay, Srinivas, do you have any questions on your chat?
Nope.
Okay, a lot of good questions. So I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend today. Hopefully you find it to be of good information. We all need to be protected against cybercrime. It is not going away. And you might think that I'm just an individual, I'm just a small business, but the cybercrime doesn't stop at the big corporations. They attack anybody because they see any of us as a potential entry point into a much bigger company or corporation. So having a protection that and working in the background that you don't have to be constantly monitoring is certainly key. I would also like to thank our panelists and distinguished guests from Lenovo, Srinivas, thank you for contributing today, as well as Stanley Tan, product manager from Flexon. We can go ahead and conclude at this point. Thank you so much. We'll look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.